व्रज जनरञ्जना यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जना यमुनातीरावनचारी यमुनातीरावनचारी जय राधमाधवा कुंज विहारी जय राधमाधवा कुंज विहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जना यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जना यमुनातीरावनचारी यमुनातीरावनचारी जय राधमाधवा कुंज विहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जना यमुनातीरावनचारी यमुनातीरावनचारी जय राधमाधवा कुंज विहारी जय राधमाधवा कुंज विहारी जय कृष्ण बलराम जय कृष्ण बलराम कृष्ण बलराम जय कृष्ण बलराम जय गौरनिताय जय गौरनिताय गौरनिताय जय गौरनिताय जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 प्रभुपाद। जय मृषपाद परमंस परिव्राजकतरे अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद डिवाइन ग्रेस एसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय मृषपाद परमंस परिव्राजकतरे अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद डिवाइन ग्रेस श्रील भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद्-भागवतम की जय। श्री श्री कृष्ण बलराम की जय। श्री श्री गौर निताय की जय। हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय। जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Reading from Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 23, Devotees' Lamentation, text number 4 and 5. सह वै देव ऋषि वर्यः तां स वै देवर्षिवर्यस्तां मानवीं समनुव्रतां दैवाद् गरीयसः पत्युः आशासानां महाशिषः कालेन भूयसा क्षामां कर्षितां व्रतचर्यया प्रेम गद्गदया वाचा पीडितः कृपया ब्रवीत् स वै देवर्षिवर्यस्तां मानवीं समनुव्रतां दैवाद्गरीयसः पत्योर् आशासानां महाशिषः कालेन भूयसा क्षामां कर्षितां व्रतचर्यया प्रेमगद्गदया वाचा पीडितः कृपया ब्रवीत् स वै देवर्षिवर्यस्तां मानवीं समनुव्रतां दैवाद्गरीयसः पत्योर् आशासानां महाशिषः कालेन भूयसा क्षामां कर्षितां व्रतचर्यया प्रेमगद्गदया वाचा पीडितः कृपया ब्रवीत्। Saha, he, Kardama. Why? Certainly, Deva Rishi of the celestial sages, Varyaha, the foremost, Tam, her, Manavim, the daughter of Manu, Samanuvratam, fully devoted, Daivat, than providence, Gariyasaha, who was greater, Patyuhu, from her husband, Asasanam, expecting, Maha-ashishaha, great blessings, Kalena Bhuyasa, for a long time, Kshamam, weak, Karshitam, emaciated, Vratacharyaya, by religious observances, Prema, with love, Gadgadaya, stammering, Vacha, with a voice, Piditaha, overcome, Kripaya, with compassion, Abravit, he said. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. The daughter of Manu, who was fully devoted to her husband, looked upon him as greater even than providence. Thus, she expected great blessings from him. Having served him for a long time, she grew weak and emaciated due to her religious observances. Seeing her condition, Kardama, the foremost of celestial sages, was overcome with compassion and spoke to her in a voice choked with great love. Kindly repeat. The daughter of Manu, who was fully devoted to her husband, looked upon him as greater even than providence. Thus she expected great blessings from him. Having served him for a long time, she grew weak and emaciated due to her religious observances. Seeing her condition, Kardama, the foremost of celestial sages, was overcome with compassion and spoke to her in a voice choked with great love. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The wife is expected to be of the same category as the husband. She must be prepared to follow the principles of the husband, and then there will be happy life. If the husband is a devotee and the wife is materialistic, there cannot be any peace in the home. The wife must see the tendencies of the husband and must be prepared to follow him. From Mahabharata, we learn that when Gandhari understood that her would-be husband, Dhritarashtra, was blind, she immediately began to practice blindness herself. Thus, she covered her eyes and played the part of a blind woman. She decided that since her husband was blind, she must also act like a blind woman. Otherwise, she would be proud of her eyes and her husband would be seen as inferior. The word Samanuvrata indicates that it is the duty of a wife to adopt the special circumstances in which the husband is situated. Of course, if the husband is as great as Kardama Muni, then a very good result accrues from following him. But even if the husband is not a great devotee like Kardama Muni, it is the wife's duty to adapt herself according to his mentality. That makes married life very happy. It is also mentioned herein that by following the strict vows of a chaste woman, Princess Devahuti became very skinny and therefore her husband became compassionate. He knew that she was the daughter of a great king and yet was serving him just like an ordinary woman. She was reduced in health by such activities and he became compassionate and addressed her as follows. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimmirandasya Jnananjanasalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yat kripatamaham mande Shri Gurum Deenataranam. A few days back, I had gone to visit a place in Sri Perumbudur, which is about 1.5 hours from Chennai, from our place where we are in Chennai. The purpose of the visit was to explore some options of some feeding activity which could take place from a trust, from a charitable trust, religious charitable trust, which was running in Sri Perumbudur. When we went there, they have built a nice kitchen and they have got all the equipment, made it all ready. They now want somebody to run it, and they were asking, because of our experience in running big kitchens, feeding a lot of people and all that, whether we can take over the kitchen. When we went there, we saw that their campus was pretty big. This kitchen, of course, is a small kitchen, spread over maybe, the footprint of the kitchen is about, I think around 6,000 square feet or something like that. Not much, small one. But the property of the trust there is quite big. They have about 20 odd acres, more than 20 acres. And they have many other facilities within that campus. They have a few temples. One is a Guru Vayurappan temple. And then they have one temple for Durga, one temple for Hanuman, and like that. They have a few temples also. And one of the other facilities that they have in their campus is one Veda Pathashala. I was just curious. I was inquiring from the person who was taking us around and showing us the campus, the facilities. What is this Veda Pathashala? He was telling that they admit students right from the age of 5 years and they teach them the Vedas. I asked them, which part of the Vedas do you teach? He said we teach them Krishna Yajurveda. There are, as we know, there are 4 Samhitas in the Vedas: Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Atharva Veda, Sama Veda. And each of them is has certain, it is covering certain aspects of life. Like, for example, the Sama Veda is full of verses, hymns glorifying the Supreme Lord as well as some Devatas. The Atharva Veda has a lot of mantras for curing some diseases, for solving some miseries in life, etc. And the Yajurveda, as the name itself signifies, is full of mantras and procedures for conducting yajnas. That is how it is called Yajurveda. And this Yajurveda itself has 2 parts. One is called Krishna Yajurveda and one is called Shukla Yajurveda. And these 4 Samhitas, they are not very big. It is, they have anywhere between 18,000 to 25,000 verses. So that much only. Just like our Srimad-Bhagavatam is there. It has got 18,000 verses. Now, I asked him, this gentleman who was taking us around, that how long does it take to learn this Krishna Yajurveda? They were teaching only one part of the Yajurveda, not the entire Vedas, one of the 4 Samhitas, and that also one specific part which is called Krishna Yajurveda. I asked him how much time does it take, how many years does it take? He said 16 years. Can you imagine that? It takes 16 years to learn one half of one Samhita. I asked him, so therefore 16 years is not just studying the Vedas. First you have to learn I asked him naturally, so you must be, 16 years must be because you are teaching them Sanskrit and Vyakarana and all those kind of things. He said yes, that initial 10-12 years will go in learning Sanskrit only. In that they have to learn the Vyakarana, Nyaya, all those kind of stuff, so that they will be able to understand the Yajurveda that they are learning. And we also teach them a little bit of English and mathematics, basic things, so that for them to conduct their daily life also it will not be an issue. That's what he told me. So you can imagine, if the child is coming into that Pathashala at 5 years of age, by the time he learns that just one Krishna Yajurveda, he would be already 21 years of age. It takes that much amount of time to learn the Vedas. But then the Vedas are very vast. Of course, the Upanishads are embedded, some of the Upanishads are embedded into these Vedas itself. So when they learn the Vedas, they learn a few of the Upanishads also. That way, if you see, there are 4 Samhitas, another 3 Samhitas to be learnt. Then there are 108 Upanishads. Then there are 18 Puranas, 2 Itihasas, Ramayana and Mahabharata. Then there are other Dharma Shastras and the Upangas, the subordinate knowledge of the Vedas, like Jyotish Shastra and Ayurveda and all those kind of stuff. You can imagine how much time it will take a person to learn if he has to learn everything. Whole lifetime will go. So, I asked him, how many children are studying in the Veda Pathashala? He said 15 children are studying. So, I was surprised, 15 children. Some parents are still in this day and age, want their children to go and learn Yajurveda. They have sent their children for 16 years. So, we asked them, do the children stay there only? Yes, they have created a facility where, so that the children can stay there and learn. Twice in a year they go home. For once during Diwali they go home, and once during the summer holidays for 1 month they go. That's all. Rest of the year they are there. And I asked them, what is the schedule? He said they get up early morning 4 a.m. and they start studying the Vedas. And it goes on till about 8 a.m. Then they have breakfast. Then 9 o'clock again the study continues till 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock they have lunch. Again at 2:30 again they resume. And it goes on till night, about 8 o'clock. So you can imagine, very tough. Not easy. Even today's toughest academic education institute you go to, they will not have this kind of schedule. Morning 4 a.m. till 8 p.m. they have to study. And studying like this, it takes them 16 years. Interestingly, they had another facility within their campus, a regular school, a CBSE syllabus school also was there. And I asked them, how many children do you have studying in that? He said 650 students. You can see, to learn the regular run-of-the-mill academics, there are 650 students. And I'm sure if they expand the capacity, more children will come. They have only that much capacity, that much infrastructure, that many teachers, only 650 are coming. But for learning the Vedas, hardly 15 people are interested. This is the current state of affairs. Today, nobody wants to learn the Vedas because it is not considered relevant to the society today. It is considered that all this Vedic knowledge are all superstition. They are all not really, it is not rational thinking to learn the Vedas. They are all some simple, blind faith and full set of dogmas, rituals, and so it is not valued much in the society today. Actually, why? In the land of rishis and sages, in the land where the highest philosophy which you can find in this world, where the greatest philosophy of life was taught and learnt, where the people of the highest caliber and intelligence used to take birth in this land, in this same Bharatavarsha today, nobody pays any value to all this Vedic knowledge. Why has this happened? If we look at current day India, the literacy rate in India will be about 66%, approximately around that, around little less than 70% maybe. That's the average literacy rate in India today. That means if there are 100 people, about 70 to 80 of them will be learned. They will know how to read, write and all that. They may not be highly educated, but at least they'll be able to read and write. Basic reading and writing ability will be there. And we have a population of about more than 100 crores today. So that means out of that 100 crores, about 66 to 70 crore people know how to read and write. And of course, there is a lot of progress to be made. We need to increase our literacy rate. The government is also trying various schemes and methods how to encourage people to study more. And if you look at the average life expectancy of the people, it is about 74, 75 years today in India. There also the government is trying to improve the medical infrastructure and the medical technology, availability of medicines at lower cost to the people. That's how we have the Pradhan Mantri, the Prime Minister's generic medicine shops where people can go and access medicines at a cheaper rate. There are government medical hospitals where you can go and avail of free treatment for some expensive stuff like chemotherapy, etc. So these kind of things government is doing so that the life expectancy of the people also goes up. There are a lot of work to be done, a lot of improvement to be achieved. Now, if you compare this with what India was at the time of its independence in 1947. 1947, India's population, when the Britishers left India, was roughly around 30 crores. 1/3 of today's population. So resources, today whatever we have resources, same resources were available, population was much lesser. That means 3 times more resources were available to the people of that day. But when the Britishers left India, can you imagine the life expectancy of the people at that time? When Britishers left India, the life expectancy of the people, Indians, native Indians, was less than 30 years. People could not be expected to live beyond 28, 30 years. That used to be the position in India. Infant mortality rate, for every 1,000 children born, 200 children would die. Today in India, it is about 40, 45 children die for every 1,000 children born. Those days it was about 200 children dying for every 1,000 children born. So that shows the very, very poor health condition of the people. And today's literacy rate is more than 60%, almost 70%, and we are saying that this is not enough, we have to increase and all that. That day and age, 1947, do you know what is the literacy rate of India? When the Britishers left India, it was 12%. Literacy rate in India was 12%. So, India, in the land of Sanskrit, where people would spend 12 years just to learn the language, and where Gurukulas, the people right from the age of 5 years, they would send the children to the Gurukulas and everybody would be educated. Education was free. In every village there would be some Brahmana, the children would all go to him and he would educate them free, and whatever Guru Dakshina they could give out of their whatever capacity they had, they could give. But otherwise education was free, freely available to all. And such fantastic philosophical knowledge which is there in the Vedas, Upanishads and all that, and such literary compositions which were happening in India, that could not have happened without a very good literacy rate. Practically everybody was educated and literate at that time. But after the Britishers ruled India for more than 200 years, what happened? They brought down the literacy rate to 12%. They brought down the life expectancy of the people to less than 30 years, and that's how they left India. So practically what happened? They destroyed the educational system in the society. Educational system, education of what? Education of Vedic culture. The people practically, even the 12% who are educated in India by the time Britishers left India, they had forgotten about Vedic education. They didn't. It's not that those 12% people were learning Vedas. No, they had all switched over to English education. That 12% also knew only English and whatever some local language they would know. And the Britishers had completely converted the whole Indian society. They had successfully taken away the Indian society from its Vedic roots. So by the time the Britishers left India, although 12% people were literate, practically 100% of the people were illiterate about Vedic culture and civilization. What was the philosophy behind Varnasrama Dharma, Sanatana Dharma? People had gone completely, they had forgotten. It had become lost. Practically it was lost. Except maybe a few Buddhijeevis, intellectuals who might have been there, but otherwise completely lost. So, in that situation, we can visualize what would have been the situation. Because Vedic, the Vedas, whatever knowledge is there in the Vedas, it has two components. It is not just theoretical knowledge alone. There is philosophy, which is the theoretical part, and there was the practice of it in the form of the Sanatana Dharma, the Varnasrama system. So there would be the Brahmanas who would be the repositories of Vedic knowledge and the philosophy and the reasoning and the logic behind all the different kinds of customs and traditions and activities which were involved in the Vedic society. And the common masses, by the process of handing over of the culture and the tradition and the customs from the elderly people to the younger generation, from the older generation to the younger generation, people would learn the practices and they would learn the philosophy from the teachers who would all be the Brahmanas. So both the theoretical part, the philosophy part, the logic and the reasoning part, and the practice part, practical part, both were going together. Now what the Britishers did, they completely destroyed the education system. So people forgot the logic, the reasoning, why are we doing this? But then the older generation kept handing over to the newer generation the practices and customs. So you can imagine at that time, the people were following the customs and the traditions associated with Varnasrama Dharma, but they had forgotten why they were doing it. It had become blind following. And naturally, when you forget the reasoning and the logic behind an activity, what happens with time, that activity itself will get corrupted because you don't know why you are doing it. It's like you have the classic Chinese whisper. You tell one person something, whisper something into his ear. He goes and whispers the same thing into another's ear, and that person goes to a fourth person and whispers that same thing into his ear. Like that, it goes around to 20 people. By the time that whisper reaches the 20th person, it would have become something else. Why? Because there is no handing over of the logic and the reasoning behind telling what one is telling. Similarly, the idea of it's a crude example that I am giving to illustrate how if we don't understand what we are doing, for why we are doing, what is the reason we are doing, gradually over a period of time, one person hands it over to the other, that person hands it over to another person. Gradually, each person will put his speculation into it, why it is being done, and he will make some modifications, adjustment. We must be doing it because of this, and he will adjust the activity according to his. So gradually, over time, what will happen is the entire thing itself will become corrupted. It will become something else altogether. It will morph into something else altogether. That is what happened with the Indian Varnasrama Dharma also. By the time the Britishers left, most of the traditions and customs in the Vedic Sanatana Dharma culture had morphed into the by birth caste system with all its concomitant evils. And so this is how the entire Varnasrama Dharma system practically collapsed. And so, therefore, what happened now, every society, because humans are all intelligent beings, they need some philosophy in life, some reasoning for their for the culture in the society. Now, the Varnasrama system has collapsed, and what is left over, the philosophy is not there. What is left over is just some set of dogmas, rituals, which have become corrupted, which are evil in the society. So now what would people have to do? They embrace the Western culture. Exactly what the Britishers wanted. They embrace the Western culture. And when they embrace the Western culture, what happened? They started demeaning the Indian culture of the Varnasrama system. They said, oh, all this Varnasrama system, these are all old fashion. People with some blind faith, they have invented all these things. These are all meant for exploitation of one caste upon another caste. Like this, they started demeaning the Varnasrama system and they started rejecting it. So, in the Western culture, what happens if you look at the Western culture, the Indians started embracing the Western culture, saying that this is very good, this is very advanced, progressive, this is a progressive civilization. Now, if you look at the progressive civilization, so-called progressive civilization of the West, if we look at one aspect of that, which is the family unit, the institution of family, the institution of marriage in the Western civilization. Today, you look at the United States, which is the beacon of Western civilization. Everybody wants to ape the West, especially the United States. If you look at the United States today, practically maybe 20 to 30% of the people only marry in the United States. Otherwise, nobody marries. And in that 20-30% people also who marry, 60 to 70% of the people, and then 60 to 70% of the marriages end up in divorce. So, practically the institution of marriage has collapsed in the West. So, this is the alternative that the West is giving to India. That you follow our model. What is that? You follow our model, and what will you get in return? You will get a failed institution of marriage. This is what you will get. And what is it that institution of marriage is replaced with? It is replaced with live-in relationship. So, there is no commitment required. Man and women, they can come and live together as long as they wish to. And once they get bored and fed up with the relationship, break up and go your ways. Simple. There is no hassle of going through a divorce and settlement and alimony. Why get into all those kind of things? Very simple. When you want, you get together. When you don't want, you go your ways. Over. And the Western, the concept is that women, even if man and woman are married, both woman and man should be independent and they should have freedom to do whatever they want. In the Indian Varnasrama system, like what we are seeing today, Devahuti, as the wife, she is so obedient, so subservient to the husband. She is thinking husband is greater than providence, carrying out every instruction of his, and she neglected her own health, became emaciated, she became practically malnourished, following the husband and serving him. So all these things, when people, current day Western civilization, people look at it, oh, the woman is being exploited, she is not being given an opportunity to express herself and live her independent life. So fact is that if man and woman are coming together as husband and wife, and both of them are leading their independent life, both of them are doing what they want, then what is the meaning of marriage? Why have you come together in marriage then? For what purpose you have come together? The answer is we have come together for the sake of sex, that's all. That's the only reason we have come together. So naturally, if that is the reason which you have come together for, that's not, that kind of relationship is not going to last, because the activity of sex itself is not something which a person can relish forever in life. You will get fed up, just like eating. Suppose you like gulab jamun, and you eat one gulab jamun, you will feel very happy. Second gulab jamun, sone pe sohaga. You got two today, you will enjoy even more. Third one, okay, theek hai, somehow nice gulab jamun. Fourth one, aaj kuch zyada ho gaya, became a little too much. Fifth one, you'll say, Arre Baba, enough. I had enough. Now if you have a little pickle, you give me. I want to, too much sweet. So this is the nature of everything material, sense gratification. After a little while, you'll get fed up. So if a relationship is based on sense gratification, after some time, you'll get fed up. You'll say, I've had enough of this. You'll look for greener pastures, newer pastures. I want to look, I will try to experience the same pleasure somewhere else, with someone else. So the relationship will break down. So if the purpose of the both husband and wife coming together is simply for sense gratification, then it will not sustain. This has been amply demonstrated by the failed institution of marriage in the failed society of the West. Actually, the society of the West is a failed society. That's the reality. And eventually what will happen in such a society? India is also aping that. So that is how in India also today, gradually, the people are losing interest in marriages. People, women and men, they are thinking why we should get married. Let us remain like that only. Slowly people's interest in marriage is going away, and even if they get married, they do so for the sake of satisfying their parents, and after a few years they get divorced. So divorce rates in India are also going up. So it's going the same way as the West. Eventually what will happen is, we continue the same way. What will happen? School, somebody will come, start shooting children, they will kill them, and this will all become part of our normal life, like it is in the US. So what kind of society is this, where a person can walk into a school and simply, just like that, he got a fancy and he walked into a school and started shooting the children. Day in and day out this is happening. What does that mean? That means that society is a failed society, a society which cannot give protection to its children and the women and the elderly. That is a failed society. And we are busy imitating a failed society. Now you contrast that with the Varnasrama Dharma. Varnasrama Dharma, as long as it was prevalent, was there a concept of divorce at all? There was no concept of divorce. Once a man and woman get married, they will be together for life. Not because they are being forced to, but by personal choice, because of the training, because of the culture, because of the philosophy, they could stay together for life. Why? Because the center of their life was not sense gratification. And if the center of the life is not sense gratification, then why is a man and a woman coming together and getting married? Not for sense gratification, but for progress in spiritual life. So if progress in spiritual life is the criterion based on which a man and woman are coming together as husband and wife, then both of them have to cooperate towards the same goal. Not independent. Woman thinks I will do whatever I want, man thinks I will do whatever I want, independently we will pursue our paths. No, both their paths is the same, which is progress in spiritual life. So naturally, if both of them are progressing towards the same path, what is required? Cooperation is required. And when cooperation is required, for cooperation, what means? What does it involve? It involves some amount of sacrifice, some amount of compromise from both the sides. Therefore, in the Vedic times, in the Varnasrama system, it was advised that the wife, how she should conduct herself in the married life. So, like it is said here, she was the Devahuti, although she was the daughter of an emperor, she was fully devoted to her husband, looked upon him greater than providence. She looked upon her husband with great respect and reverence. And she served him for a long time, not considering her own health and well-being, expecting that she will get great blessings from her great husband. And as we can see, eventually Kardama Muni will give that blessing also to her. It's not that Kardama Muni was an incompetent person. No, he was highly competent. He was highly exalted sage he was. So as Prabhupada is explaining in the purport, if the husband is a great devotee and the wife selflessly serves that husband, then she stands to gain immensely. Like Devahuti, because she served her husband Kardama Muni like this, as a son she got the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. What a great fortune! For a woman to become the mother of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not an ordinary thing. Devahuti got that because she served her husband selflessly. So, for a woman to serve her husband very nicely, it is only beneficial for her, especially when the husband is highly qualified. And Prabhupada is explaining, suppose the husband is not such a great devotee. Even in such a case, if the woman serves the husband nicely and understands his intentions and his priorities in life and molds herself according to that, then the family life will be very peaceful and it will be harmonious. And so husband and wife will be able to spend their whole life together without any difficulty. There is no divorce required, there is no alimony required, there is no separation required, there are no breakups required, there are no live-in relationships required. All these things are not required. All these inventions of the West are not required. So, in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, in the 7th canto, there is a wonderful description of the symptoms of the expectations from a woman who is a wife. It is said that a wife should be santushta lolupa, daksha, dharmajna, and she should be dharmajna, what is that? She should not be hankering. Oh, my and she has to take care of the husband, serve the husband and all that. Does it mean that the woman, wife, should get no education? She should be an illiterate woman sitting at home all day? No, she should be dharmajna. She should be very well versed with what is dharma, what is adharma, what is papa and what is punya, and she should guide the husband also in what are the dharmic activities to be done. So she has to be very knowledgeable. That is the duty of the wife. She has to be knowledgeable to assist her husband properly in dharmic activities, because that's the goal of married life. So if the woman is, like Prabhupada is saying in the purport, if the husband is very dharmic and the woman is materialistic, she has nothing to do with dharma, what will happen in that family? Family will break apart. Either way, if the wife is also very dharmic and the husband is materialistic, then also the family life the family will simply fall apart. So the woman, because the family is supposed to be the institution where people can practice dharma, therefore the woman has to be dharmajna. The husband also has to be dharmajna, wife also has to be dharmajna. And priya satyavak, she should always speak the truth. She should not simply flatter the husband. If the husband is doing something wrong, she should go and tell him in his face that you are doing wrong. She should priyavak, she should speak sweetly, but at the same time she should speak the truth. Just like you see the example Prabhupada gives in the purport is of Gandhari. Gandhari was so chaste and devoted to her husband. Moment she heard that she is going to marry a person who is blind, she immediately took several layers of silk cloth and tied it to her eyes. She said, if my husband cannot see, I also don't want to see. So devoted. Even though she was so devoted to her husband, whenever Dhritarashtra did something wrong to the Pandavas, she would go to Dhritarashtra and tell him, you are doing wrong. And she would tell him, reject Duryodhana, don't follow his advice, reinstate the Pandavas, give them the throne. She used to go and tell him. So she would speak the truth. Not that she is blindly following the husband and tied her this one eyes and the husband is blind, so I am also blind. Whatever he does, I will blindly follow. No. Priya Satyavak, she has to speak the truth to her husband. And not only this, Apramatta, she should very soberly serve her husband. And Shuchihi, she should be very clean, she should be very hygiene, she should herself be very clean and maintain all the house and other paraphernalia also very clean. And all this she has to do. The Bhagavatam then qualifies all these things with the final line. It says, Patim tu apatitam bhajet. As long as the pati, husband, is apatitam, he has not fallen away from the path of dharma, she should serve him like this. What is the path of dharma? Path of dharma, basic path of adharma is intoxication, meat eating, gambling, illicit sex. If the husband engages in any of these activities, then the wife can reject that husband. The wife needs to follow the husband only as long as he is dharmic, because the institution of marriage is centered around dharma. In today's world, both husband and wife will be engaging in intoxication, meat eating, and gambling, and illicit sex will also be there. All these things are going on. So, the institution of marriage, the center of the institution of marriage in the modern day world is something else altogether. It is sense gratification. So both husband and wife are engaged in this. In Varnasrama system, it was not like that. Although the wife is supposed to serve the husband only as long as he is following the path of dharma. Otherwise, no need. So like this, when we look at these instructions in the Bhagavatam, and we look at the culture of the Varnasrama system, we have to understand the philosophy, the spirit behind them, and then we practice that Varnasrama Dharma, then it brings great value to the society. The society becomes very sublime. The entire mass of people are able to progress spiritually. They have a meaning, they have a purpose in life. Sense gratification is not the aim of life. When sense gratification becomes the aim of life, the society collapses. Everything falls apart and people keep quarreling with each other. That is a sign of Kali Yuga. For small things, husband and wife will quarrel, divorce and go their separate ways. This is how society has become. Why? Because the people have forgotten that the center, the crux of life has to be the path of dharma. So when we neglect dharma, everything else is going to fail. Everything else is going to fall apart. So therefore, Prabhupada towards the end was very anxious to actually re-establish the Varnasrama Dharma. But of course, people in today's world do not appreciate, do not value the Varnasrama Dharma. They think, like I said in the beginning, 15 children are coming to that school, Veda Pathashala. Why? Because people don't value. So, if we have to today re-establish Varnasrama Dharma, we cannot expect the common mass of people to do it. the devotees have to practice Varnasrama Dharma, and with the reasoning and the philosophy behind it and the actual practice, when the devotees establish a community and demonstrate to the world, this is how society should be, then people will follow. And this is what Prabhupada wanted to do towards the end of his manifest pastimes, but somehow that could not happen. But if that has to, again, Varnashrama system has to come back in the society, it's possible only if the devotees set up a community and practically show how the Varnashrama system has to run, not based on simply birth, but on qualification. So based on that, guna and karma, we create that system, because in modern society, people think that Varnashrama system is meant for exploitation of the lower caste of people by the upper caste people. So the word Shudra has become a very abhorred word in today's world. So they think Shudra means somebody born in a certain family, he is treated as an outcast. But then if you see in the Vedic times, Brahmana means there was a certain set of qualifications. Satyam, Shaucham, Kshama, Daya, Arjavam, Mastikyam, etc. He has to be very truthful, he has to be very self-controlled, he has to live a very simple life, he should not take up the employment with somebody else, etc. For Kshatriyas, it is ruling over, giving protection to the citizens, etc. For the Vaishyas, it is Krishigo, Raksha, Vanidhyam, etc. etc. The agriculture, trade, and banking, finance, taking care of cows. So this is this one, the symptoms of a Vaishya. Now for a Shudra, if we understand what are the real qualification to be a Shudra, if you look at ourselves and the present day society, nobody will qualify to be even a Shudra. Forget about Vaishya, Kshatriya or Brahmana. It is very, very far away. So in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, in the 7th canto, it is said, Shudrasya sannatihi shaucham seva swaminya amayaya amantra yajno hi asteyam satyam go vipra rakshanam. These are the symptoms of the Shudra. Symptoms of the Shudra means if he practices these things, you can understand this man is a Shudra. What are the symptoms of a Shudra? Offering obeisances to the higher sections of the society, the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas and Vaishyas. Meaning he has to obey their directions in the society. Okay, that's a very simple thing. Being always clean. How many of us are clean? Clean means in the Vedic times, people had to take bath 3 times a day. That is the standard of cleanliness. Today, people to take bath even once a day is a very difficult thing. Get up in the morning, brush the teeth, eau de cologne, and go. That's all. So, you are not even a Shudra. Okay, cleanliness is one thing. Let us anyway keep it aside. Being free from duplicity. That means one has to be honest and straightforward. So this is the qualification of a Shudra. Serving one's master. Performing sacrifices without uttering mantras. It is not the Shudras could not conduct yajnas. They could conduct yajnas, but mantras would be chanted by the Brahmanas. So, but conducting yajna was essential for a Shudra. Who conducts yajnas today? Nobody does. Not stealing. He should not steal. Always speaking the truth. He should always speak the truth. He should not lie. How many people speak truth today? Morning they wake up with a lie. They are getting ready, going to office. Boss will call. Where are you? I'm stuck in the traffic. Coming. Morning starts with a lie. So, the Shudra means he should always speak the truth. And giving all protection to the cows and Brahmanas. These are the symptoms of the Shudra. So, if you go by these symptoms, you tell me today's world, who will qualify to be a Shudra? None of us qualifies to be even a Shudra. Forget about Vaishya, forget about Kshatriya, forget Brahmana, though you cannot even dream of it. So, if the entire society today, even if they become Shudras, the society will become like heaven, Swarga. Nobody is speaking lies, nobody is duplicitous, everybody is very clean, everybody is conducting yajnas, all the cows and Brahmanas are protected. It will become Swarga. So actually, today, although people call themselves Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, etc., they are not even Shudras. Actually, Shastra is very lenient. Shastra says, Kalau Shudra Sambhava. In Kali Yuga, everybody is born a Shudra. But actually, in Kali Yuga, everybody is less than a Shudra. He is not even eligible to be part of the Varnasrama system. So this is the reality. But people think, they think Shudra means it is some caste into which a person is born, and Brahmana means it is a caste into which a person is born, etc. So these are all not the realities. The reality is you have to go by symptoms. You have to go by the qualities and the kind of work the person is doing. Based on that, the qualification happens. And if you go by those parameters, then today's world, nobody fits into the description of even Shudra. They are not even qualified to be Shudras. This is the reality. So, if Varnashrama system has to be re-established, for that education is required. The philosophy has to come in. See, today we are able to appreciate the greatness of Varnashrama system, that it is not simply a caste system meant for exploitation of the downtrodden sections of the society. We are able to appreciate that today because the philosophy of the Bhagavatam and Bhagavad-gita is there with us. So therefore, the spreading of Bhagavad-gita and Bhagavatam is essential in society today, and a practical example of the Varnashrama system, if it is established by the devotees, then there is hope for re-establishing Varnasrama Dharma. Otherwise, it is not possible. So that's how we have to understand these verses of the Bhagavatam, where the description of the duties of a wife and a woman and all these things are described. It is not meant for exploitation of, it is not a gender exploitation, it is not an exploitation of certain caste of the society or anything like that. It is actually meant for progressive advancement of the entire society. That's how we have to understand. So I will stop here. If anybody has any question or comment, we can discuss. Yes, please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, by following Varnashrama system, like the Shudras, if they are following whatever the rules and regulations for them, are they progressing, or are they going back to Godhead, or like it is a gradual process, they have to come to next step, then come to Brahmana stage?
The whole process of Varnashrama system is designed to elevate a person in Sattva-guna. Those who are in Tamoguna are the Shudras. So the process of, if they follow the duties of a Shudra perfectly, then after a few lifetimes, they will elevate themselves and come to mixed Rajoguna and Tamoguna. And they will thus become Vaishyas. And gradually, when they follow the duties of a Vaishya, gradually they will become more and more free of Tamoguna, and they will elevate themselves to Rajoguna, by which they will become Kshatriyas. And those Kshatriyas, when they follow the Kshatriya Dharma properly, they will elevate themselves, free themselves from Rajoguna and situate themselves in Sattva-guna, and they will become Brahmanas. And the Brahmanas in Sattva-guna, when they practice spirituality for several lifetimes, then they will be able to liberate themselves from the cycle of birth and death in this world. That's how the process of Varnasrama Dharma is designed, so that everybody gets an opportunity to elevate themselves in the modes of material nature and come to the platform of Sattva-guna, because Sattva-guna is the springboard from where you can jump out of this cycle of birth and death within this material world. That is how the whole Varnashrama system is designed. Anybody else? Yes, Raghavasuran.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Like slowly people are not showing interest in family life because of Western influence. So does it favorable to spread Sankirtana?
Favorable also, unfavorable also, both. Either way, whichever way the society goes, ultimately the jivas, there will always be jivas who have inquisitiveness about the purpose of life. When Prabhupada went to the West, there was no Varnashrama system. Forget about Varnashrama system. They were all drug addicts, hippies, and such a low class of people. Prabhupada preached to them and converted them into devotees. So the situation in what happens is, when you don't have Varnashrama system, when you have when the institution of marriage is also collapsing, people will become frustrated with life very easily, very quickly. Very quickly they will understand the futility of sense gratification in material life, which makes them prime candidates to understand spiritual knowledge. So that way there is favorability. But because of lack of training in society, because they've been trained to think in the mode of sense gratification, it will not be easy for them also to follow the path of sense control which is there in spiritual life. So naturally there will be more fall downs and those kind of things happening. But whatever it is, that person has benefited by engaging in devotional service to Krishna. So that way it is beneficial only ultimately for the jiva. Yes.
Also, in the last 400-500 years, some practices such as some people cannot enter the temple and all these things, repeatedly pointed out by historians as, even just before the Britishers came or they were just about to rule. So, and the culture of disrespect set in the Indian society.
Yeah, so that's happened. That's happened because of the rulers being being followers of the people who are not part of the Varnasrama Dharma. When they became rulers, when the Mughals invaded India, that's when the degradation of the society started. Actually, the Varnasrama system is protected by the Raja Rishis. The moment kings became non-Raja Rishis, they became kings only for sense gratification, and the kings who did not understand Varnasrama Dharma and who did not have the motivation to protect Varnasrama Dharma, such people who were all these external invaders who came into India, they started ruling over India. So naturally, the protection was lost. The moment protection is removed, the whole Varnasrama system started degrading. The degradation started there. But what happened was, with time, what happened? The Britishers dealt the final. They dealt the final blow. So the final nail in the coffin was driven by the Britishers by completely destroying the educational system. At least earlier there could have been the philosophy. If that was there, then people would have been able to understand the Varnasrama system and it could have been revived. But because that was completely destroyed, the whole thing collapsed totally. So 500 years ago, when the Britishers were ruling India, there were people like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there was Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, such great scholars who gave such wonderful philosophy which people could understand, and they also fought against all this caste system and all these kind of things. So rejection of the Varnasrama system is not needed to fight against the evils of the society. So whenever people would deviate from the path of Varnasrama system, great acharyas like Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, they would all come and they would tell the people what is the right path to follow. Even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fought against this caste system, where people were oppressed for no fault of theirs. So even during 500 years back, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was there, people were great. The great scholars used to be there. Educational system had not collapsed yet. There people, just like you see, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he was a simple commoner, so to speak. Of course, he is a great devotee, pure devotee, that's a different matter. But even such a commoner, he wrote the Govinda Lilamrita, because of which he got the title of Kaviraj. He was, from material point of view, he was a commoner. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, from the beginning, he was a great scholar and all those kind of things. But Krishnadas was not like that. He wrote, that simple commoner, Krishnadas Kaviraj, he wrote the Govinda Lilamrita, such an excellent work in Sanskrit that people who were read, they gave him the title of Kaviraj. So even common people knew Sanskrit and they could understand the Vedas and they could grasp the philosophy. So that education system was still there. So what it required was one acharya to bring forth that knowledge, and people would be able to immediately grasp and again correct the Varnasrama system. See, any system you set up in this material world, the nature is that with time it will degrade. That's the influence of Kala, and that's the nature of this material world. Anything you set up, it will degrade with time. That is why maintenance is required. Therefore, from time to time, acharyas would come, do a course correction, and set the path again in the right direction, and it would continue. But that was possible as long as people understood the language and they had basic knowledge of the philosophy. But if the philosophy itself is lost, the language itself is lost, then where is the hope? Therefore, the process of direct devotional service, Bhakti Yoga, is required, as Srila Prabhupada has re-established. That's the only thing that will work. Is that okay? So we'll stop here. Grantharaj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.